Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, I thought I would, rather than doing a hypnosis session, actually answer the 5 questions that are the most common when it comes to hypnotherapy. So if you are looking for a hypnotherapy session, an actual hypnosis session to listen to, just skip to the next track. This is going to be me answering 5 questions, common questions about hypnotherapy. So the first question I get asked a lot is hypnotherapy safe? And I answer this in a unique way, and that is through the premiums that I pay for insurance. So if I was a dentist, if I was a doctor, if I was a surgeon, then my insurance premiums for any kind of issues related to my work are going to be in the thousands. I typically pay about £50 a year. It's about $60 for my hypnotherapy insurance. And as you know, insurance companies analyze data. So for my insurance premiums to be that low, it's because all of the data is showing that hypnotherapy is exceptionally safe. It has many positive benefits, but it certainly isn't dangerous. So that's how I answer that question. The next question that comes up is, will I lose control or be made to do things against my will? And again, I'm going to answer this in a unique way because society moves towards what's effective. So if you want to coerce someone and control someone, the threat of violence is much more effective than hypnosis. And we know that to be true because if someone wants to rob a bank or a store, they don't go in doing hypnotic suggestions. Typically, they go in with, a gun or some kind of weapon, and there is a threat. So if you want to get someone to do something against their will, what we see in society is people use violence or the threat of violence to do that, not hypnotherapy. If you want to scare a lot of people, using fear to influence people is also commonly used, but rarely is hypnotic language. Typically, that is because the mind is exceptionally good at knowing what is good for it. So if I try to encourage someone to do something destructive with hypnotherapy, their intuition would resist it. And a lot of what I do is negotiate with the unconscious to find agreement in whatever the change is going to be. So could I make someone do something against their will, not using hypnotherapy? And it's important for people to realize that. I use the analogy that if you were lost in a forest and I knew that forest very well, then it might be in your interest for me to guide you out of the forest. But that doesn't mean I'm forcing you out of the forest. You could find your own way, but it's just a helpful way to get to the outcome you're looking for quickly. Third question, how does hypnotherapy work? What hypnotherapy really does is a combination of challenging belief systems and unconscious or automatic processes, which could be behaviors or thoughts, and effectively creates more choices. And one of the things that I love learning about is neuroplasticity, which is the ability for the brain to rewire itself when necessary. So if you're right-handed and let's say that you're in an accident and you lost, your right arm was amputated, you could learn to write with your left hand very quickly indeed, because your mind would rewire itself for that capability. So that's kind of what's happening with hypnotherapy. We want to shut off certain current ways of thinking or doing things so that you're moving towards a more helpful way of doing things. It's all about choice, really. Fourth question, what can hypnotherapy treat? Well, there's certain things it can treat, and there's certain things I don't recommend that it treats. So if it's psychological in nature, anxiety, if it's emotional, if it's habits, addictions, intense emotional states, anticipating the future, hypnosis is really good at that kind of stuff. If I get a toothache, I don't use hypnosis on myself. I go to a dentist. If I needed some kind of operation, I'm not just going to give myself hypnotic suggestions. I'm going to go to a specialist in that area. So if it is physical in nature and it isn't caused by thoughts or habitual behaviors and habits, then typically you want to find a medical expert. The problem that we have in society is because the medical model is so entrenched. A lot of people go through the medical model even when the medical model isn't the most suitable thing. For example, if someone has severe anxiety, a lot of the time doctors will prescribe beta blockers or SSRIs, which may mitigate the symptoms, but it doesn't get to the root cause of where anxiety is coming from. However, if someone has some kind of, let's say, medical issue, heart defect, some kind of disease or infection, the medical model is very well placed to deal with those kind of issues. So the ideal question to answer is this psychological in nature, or is this some kind of disease or issue or illness? And unfortunately, there is narratives within society where medical language is used to describe things that aren't medical in nature. For example, I've had many debates with people that will firmly try and convince me and others that addictions are a disease. And while I think it might be even a helpful metaphor in some cases, because it takes away the shame and the feeling of loss of control of the individual, let's be honest, an addiction is not a disease. Obesity is not a disease. So therefore, if that narrative is that it's a disease, then you're naturally thinking, hey, I need to go to a doctor for this. If, and there's very eminent psychologists out there that will say, in many cases, addictions is, a coping mechanism for things like trauma or overwhelm. Well, then, to deal with trauma, going to a therapist is more helpful. Final question that comes up is, how many sessions will I need? And the duration of the sessions and the frequency and the time in between sessions is always related to the specific issue that I'm working on. Generally, if I'm working with people for weight loss, I tend to do 2 sessions in the first month and then about a month apart. If it's a severe phobia or anxiety, quite often just a few days or a week in between sessions is useful. What I tend to recommend to estimate the exact number of sessions that might be helpful is that I offer a completely free 30-minute consultation call so that I explore the individual circumstances with the person that could potentially want to work with me. And then at the end of that session, I tend to make my estimate of how many sessions are helpful. If you are curious about how many sessions you might need and whether or not hypnosis could even help your particular issue, there will be a link in the show notes where you can schedule a free 30-minute call to explore working with me with no obligation to work with me, but just to explore the possibility, and that's completely free of charge. So click that link if you're interested, and if you have any other questions, let me know either in the comment section on Spotify or drop me an email at adam@adamcox.co.uk, and I'll try and answer more questions in future episodes. For now, though, thank you for listening. And I guess one final thing to end is that I'm recording this right at the end of the month. And yet again, it's been a record-breaking month with about 400,000 downloads in a month, which mind-boggling for me. So thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate those of you that rate, review, share the episodes to people that you know. Really appreciate that, because it enables the show to find bigger and bigger audiences. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode very soon.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.